I think this morning we had a very, very fascinating and exciting discussions. My intention is to make my session as fascinating and exciting as it was before in the morning. But some of you may have recognized my voice has changed. Usually I have a very beautiful voice, but today, unfortunately, my voice somehow has changed for the worse. I tried very hard to bring back my original voice throughout the proceedings. Well, before I introduce our presenters and panelists, let me just make some observation about the topic we are dealing with shortly. Today, we can look at the security cooperation both from format and substance, security cooperation between Korea and ASEAN. And this morning, Ambassador Seo set the stage for fruitful discussion by delivering an opening, but virtually a keynote speech. Firstly, in terms of format or channels, Korea and ASEAN have several dimensions or layers of security dialogue or consultation or cooperation. We have ongoing bilateral security dialogue. This is annual bilateral security dialogue between Korea and ASEAN. And also we have security consultations or cooperation within the framework of annual meeting of ARF. And also we have defense consultation or cooperation within the framework of ADMM Plus. And now we are going to add one more tier or layer of security cooperation or consultation by the policy of new southern policies, where peace, namely security cooperation, constitute one of the three pillars, as eloquently articulated by Ambassador Seo this morning. Then, in terms of substance or area of security, as many of you have acknowledged this morning, we have faced traditional as well as non-traditional security challenges. While NTS issues, non-traditional security issues, has been gaining on gradual prominence and growing more important, nonetheless, cooperation on traditional security challenges or consultation is not insignificant. I counted the number of statements issued by ASEAN foreign ministers from the time North Korea detonated the fifth nuclear devices. That was, I believe, January 8, 2016 to September 7, 2017. ASEAN foreign ministers issued 9 statements in response to North Korea's nuclear test or ballistic missile test flight. And in the statement, ASEAN foreign minister deplored and expressed grave concerns on DPRK's mischievous behaviors. And they urged DPRK immediately to comply fully with their obligations pursuant to the various relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. So this indicates that the ASEAN has also very much interest in the North Korean nuclear issues. And also, ASEAN has offered the ARF Forum as a venue where the participant can engage DPRK on dialogue aimed at the denuclearization of DPRK. And also, as we all well know, Singapore has offered itself as a venue for the first ever inter-Korean, first ever summit between United States and DPRK. So I believe that the ASEAN has, fairly large amount of interest in the denuclearization of the DPRK. As a matter of fact, I believe ASEAN has ramped up pressures on DPRK to reduce the aggravation of situations by refraining from mischievous actions or behaviors. I think it goes without saying that the two most conspicuous but intractable security challenges confronting our region are DPRK's nuclear issues as well as the dispute in the South China Sea. As far as Korea is concerned, I think we are committed to upholding the principle of the freedom of navigation in and overflight above the South China Sea, because we have a strong stake in the peaceful maintenance of the South China Sea. So with this intervention by me as moderators, I'd like to introduce our presenters and panelists. I think the Ambassador Seo and Jeju Peace Institute has done a great job in terms of assembling the panelists who are more qualified than others. And the biographical data of the presenters and discussants are all included in the brochure. So I will not waste time to repeating what is already included in the booklet. Let me first invite Dr. Lee. But before that, since we have two presenters and two discussants, I want to just allocate 15 to 20 minutes to presenters and 10 minutes to discussant. And then I will see how we can utilize the remainder of the time. So with that, I will hand over the floor to Dr. Lee.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jae-hyun Lee from ASEAN Institute, and I thank Ambassador Chung for his introduction, and also thank to the Jeju Peace Institute for having me here as a presenter. My presentation is focusing on the Korea-Southeast Asia security cooperation, and some of the participants in this room were aware of my usual argument regarding the Korea-Southeast Asia security cooperation. And my presentation has four different aspects. First, I will review the Korea-ASEAN cooperation so far, and then we'll examine the environment in which Korea-ASEAN security cooperation is located, and then I will suggest some direction for future cooperation and some concrete policy suggestions. Okay, the first part is review. Okay. review of Korea-ASEAN cooperation so far. And one of the questions that the ASEAN countries raising on the South Korea's policy towards Southeast Asia is its inconsistency. The over the administration and even within one administration, there have been ups and downs of Korea's emphasis on Southeast Asia, and the question is that Southeast Asian countries want to see more consistent policy towards Southeast Asia by Korea. And when we discuss Korea-ASEAN cooperation, we usually have three different dimensions: political security cooperation, economic cooperation, and social-cultural cooperation. And when it comes to social-cultural and economic cooperation, there has been substantial growth in the past couple of decades, at least in terms of quantity. But when it comes to security cooperation, still there's a big room for improvement. And if you look at social cultural cooperation and economic cooperation on one hand, and political security cooperation on the other, different logics apply. The thing is, you have track 2 or the civilian counterpart when it comes to economic, social, cultural cooperation. The government opens up the venue, then it is private companies, private associations that pushes the cooperation really forward. That is economic and social cultural cooperation. But when it comes to security cooperation, there's no track 2. I mean, in track 2, we can discuss some strategic issues, but it is the government who has to be in charge of cooperation from A to G. So that is security cooperation. And the prime institution of security cooperation between Korea and Southeast Asia is the ASEAN-Korea Security Dialogue, which was set up in 2013, but it hasn't been really fully utilized so far. And we have a lot of non-traditional and human security cooperation with the Southeast Asian countries. But the problem with this NTS and HS cooperation with ASEAN is that the visibility. Korea's effort hasn't got that high visibility from the perspective of ASEAN countries. And also the ASEAN countries and Korea both are quite sensitive toward the security cooperation and military cooperation. That is one of the challenge that we are facing in our security cooperation with ASEAN countries. And on top of that, the South Korean government so far has quite obsessed with North Korea issue, and it has caused some concern from Southeast Asian countries. Because many of Southeast Asian countries see Korean Peninsula issue as a power game among the big countries, and then they feel quite uncomfortable, especially in the situation where there is a North Korea, South Korea confrontation. Then it is very hard for Southeast Asian countries to get involved. And the second part is a kind of environment where the Korea ASEAN security cooperation is situated. In the first session, we had a look at the global and regional strategic circumstances. At the moment, there is a growing competition between China and the U.S., which is symbolized by Indo-Pacific and Belt and Road Initiative. And the question is, this competition poses some strategic uncertainty for regional small and medium countries. And either these two big giants fight or they make compromise. There's no guarantee that the small and medium countries' interest is reflected properly in this big giant competition. And also for Korea, the Moon Jae-in government is pursuing foreign policy diversification, which is basically making more complex strategic networks with regional and other countries in other regions. And South Korean government has pursued its own economic diversification for a long time, and it has been quite successful, I guess. But when it comes to security issues and political security cooperation, building a more complex stretching network, there's still room for improvement. And also, the South Korea is facing a new environment, a new strategic environment in the Korean Peninsula since the early 2018, because of this ongoing dialogue between North and South, and the North and the United States. So this is sort of an environment that South Korea has when it comes to our security cooperation with the Southeast Asian countries. And for ASEAN specifically, the Southeast Asian countries are building ASEAN political security community, and they are investing in a serious resource into this building of APSC. And at the same time, many Southeast Asian countries are facing worsening non-traditional and human security conditions. So without addressing these non-traditional and human security problems, there will be no peace for the ordinary people in the region, and no prosperity for the people in the region. And also, this non-traditional and human security issue causes some domestic instability in some Southeast Asian countries. Okay, now I'll move on to the direction for, it's kind of suggestion, my suggestion for the new southern policies, political security cooperation with the Southeast Asian countries. The first item is that we have to anyhow revive regional multilateral cooperation. Basically, multilateralism is the weapons of the weak, weapons of small and medium countries in the region. Through this multilateral cooperation, we can mitigate some negative impacts coming from the superpower strategic competition. And at the same time, we can maximize small and medium countries' strategic interest. And I strongly recommend that the new Southern policy anyhow incorporate the multilateral cooperation into its agenda. I mean, so far, I can't see any concrete measure on the new Southern policy on the multilateral cooperation, but I strongly urge the Korean government to think about this multilateral cooperation, how to revive multilateral cooperation jointly with the Southeast Asian countries. And the second item is the, of course, Korean Peninsula. As far as we have North Korea, and before we get the unified with North Korea, this Korean Peninsula issue is the biggest and the most important issue for South Korea's security concern. So, and this government, the Moon Jae-in government, under new Southern policy, we have to have a different approach when it comes to the getting Southeast Asian countries involved in the Korean Peninsula issue. And I suggest enough information sharing with ASEAN countries and inviting Southeast Asian countries in building peace in the Korean Peninsula, rather than in previous government we have done this a lot, but rather than condemning or putting pressure on North Korea, we have to have a fresh, new approach to Southeast Asia when it comes to Korean Peninsula issue. And last but not the least, our principle in foreign policy and regional policy matters. I often make this analogy that the South Korean foreign policy is like a grown-up baby. Our size and our power, our economic power is quite big from the outside perspective, but our mindset is still like toddler or little child. We have to see a big picture, bigger regional strategic scene, and we have to do our best to make a contribution for region. This is quite important. I mean, at the moment, as I mentioned, because of U.S. and China strategic competition, there is a growing strategic uncertainty and a big question mark on existing regional liberal international order. And there are some requests from outside, from other regional countries, that why don't South Korea to come out with, put your hand together with us to sustain this existing liberal international order in this region, multilateralism, free trade, democracy, human rights. There are heaps of issues that we have to take care. But anyhow, South Korean government is dragging its feet. I guess this is one of the contributions that the South Korea can make under New Southern policy. The last, I guess I got the less than 5 minutes, and this is the last part of my presentation. The last part is the policy suggestion. Okay, as I mentioned, the New Southern policy has to come out its own vision for regional multilateral cooperation, how to revive ASEAN Plus 3 East Asia Summit, and how to provide further momentum for ADMM Plus, ARF, and APEC, all this sort of regional multilateral cooperation. The one way to push this multilateral cooperation, and especially the Korea-ASEAN cooperation to revive multilateralism in the region, is sharing our strategic concern. And when we have shared sense of crisis or threat, then we can start real cooperation to revive regional multilateral cooperation. And particularly the current strategic environment that we are facing in the region reminds me something. I mean, we in the first session, we record Dr. Mahathir a few times, and it's quite interesting that I have to mention Dr. Mahathir again. He was, in the early 1990s, he proposed East Asia Economic Group as an exclusive group for East Asian countries to promote multilateral economic cooperation. And his point in proposing East Asia Economic Group or caucus was that the European countries were building its own European fortress with Maastricht treaty. And if you look at the North America in the late 80s and early 90s, they built NAFTA. And facing these two trends in Europe and North America, Dr. Mahathir was saying that the East Asian countries have to have its own multilateral economic cooperation, either as a bargaining tool or to just simply promote inter-regional trade, investment, and economic cooperation. Now, with US and China competition growing, and especially the trade war is a big concern for regional countries which are mainly dependent on export and economic cooperation, with export to the US market and economic cooperation with China. Then it is time for South Korea and ASEAN countries to push CPTPP and RCEP as an alternative forward. And then the second is upholding ASEAN centrality and unity. You know, South Korea has to be the spearhead in the promoting ASEAN centrality and unity as a known ASEAN partner of Southeast Asian countries. Of course, it includes supporting ASEAN political security community, especially through non-traditional security cooperation. And last but not the least, I have to mention some bilateral institutions for security cooperation. I always say that the building institution is quite important. Otherwise, we will face the same inconsistency problem in our cooperation with ASEAN countries. We already have ASEAN-Korea security dialogue, and the question is how to revitalize this institution. And second, I wish the Korean government to set up ASEAN-Korea non-traditional security dialogue. And the third, ASEAN-Korea track to dialogue as an institution to for the track to export, discuss strategic issues, and give feedback to their own government to facilitate inter-government dialogue and cooperation between Korea and ASEAN. With these three triangular structure of security cooperation between Korea and ASEAN, we can provide some effective and consistent and sustainable political security cooperation between Korea and ASEAN. I will stop here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for your wonderful presentation. I think Dr. Lee has made 3 suggestions at the end of his presentation. If I repeat what he suggested as a policy recommendation, I think firstly, he said that new Southern policy has to provide a vision to revive regional multilateral cooperation together with the ASEAN member countries. And secondly, he suggested new Southern policy should not spare effort in upholding ASEAN centrality and unity. And thirdly, he suggested Korea has to establish strong institutional basis for further security cooperation with ASEAN by holding ASEAN-Korea NTS dialogue and ASEAN-Korea track to dialogue. I think this will be a great source of further discussion when he opened the floor. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Chin, Nguyen Duc Chin, to make your presentation.
Thank you, Ambassador Chung Hae-moon, for introduction. And first of all, I want to thank to the Jeju Peace Institute for inviting me for the very wonderful conference. Actually, Dr. Lee have mentioned very comprehensively on the bilateral security cooperation between ASEAN and South Korea. I don't know, I have much room to talk about. Then I decided to decide the theme for my presentation is about non-traditional security. I think we have made a lot of progress on these issues, and there are still a lot of rooms for both sides to enhance the cooperation in non-traditional security issues. My presentation will have 4 parts. First, I will review the current non-traditional security in ASEAN. And second is the reason for boosting non-traditional security. And the third is current ASEAN-Korean cooperation on non-traditional security. And finally, is some suggestions to see how we can work on this issue. On the first part, on the current non-traditional security in ASEAN, I want to focus primarily on 3 issues. It's water security, cyber security, and climate change. In my opinion, it is the most urgent issue in the region. And it's also sharing a lot of common interests between ASEAN and South Korea. And finally, it can threaten the geostrategic landscape in the region. First, about the water security. As you see, in a water security index study published in 2014, ASEAN ranked as the first in the world in terms of average flood damage. It cost ASEAN, it lost ASEAN $6 million every year just because of floods. And in the next slide, you can see floods. It's normal to happen in the rural area, but you can see it's flood in the airport area. On the left picture is flood in Tân Sơn Nhất Airport, is a Ho Chi Minh City airport in Vietnam. And the second picture is a flood in Bangkok, the second airport in Bangkok. Yes. So what it's floods. If it's floods in airport, it's influence in the connectivity in the region. As you see, Bangkok and Ho Chi Minh City is a hub for transportation from the north to the south of Asia and from the west to the east of Asia. So you see it's damaged a lot by floods. Next, also regard to the floods things and water security. After 19th Party Congress of China, as what I know that some friends say China decided to go down the south by 2 wings. The left wing, China will go down through the Mekong River to Mekong countries, and the right is the South China Sea. So, as China have put a lot of money in the Mekong country to create Lankan Mekong cooperation. As in 2017, they commit $6 billion. And especially in Cambodia, you have been known that Cambodia received a lot of money from China. And recently, Laos also received a lot of money from China. Last June, I was visiting Laos, and some scholars said they have no choice because they need money to develop. So even they aware of the risk of the China's investment, but they still have to accept them for economic development. So the next issue is about drought. Also, too much water is also an issue, and no water also the issues. As index, the same index, ASEAN also ranked as the second place in the world being damaged by the drought. And you see it costs ASEAN $214,000 USD every year. So that's our current situation on water security in the region. Next year is about cyber security. The fact is that digital economy adds $1 trillion USD to ASEAN GDP in the next 10 years. And the total GDP of ASEAN in the next 10 years is 4 trillion. So it costs about 1/4 of total GDP ASEAN in the next 10 years. So, and you see, it's Singapore, as a chairmanship of this year, have raised this issue very high in the agenda. And you see, in the second map, actually, it's hard to for the audience. In the second map, you see a wide gap among ASEAN members on the perception and policy toward cybersecurity. On the top, high awareness. The 4 countries, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, in the high aware of that cybersecurity and has some legislation and actual action on that issue. But among ASEAN 6, including Laos, Brunei, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Indonesia, we have just very low level of awareness of cybersecurity. And I know in this issue, South Korea is an expert. And that is a good room for bilateral cooperation between ASEAN and South Korea. Then it's come to the climate change. Also, you can see the hotspot on the map. That's the darker red is the area that affected severely by climate change. That include Vietnam, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Thailand. Those countries receive a lot of weather extreme events every year, and it's also affected severely by the sea level rise. The population and economic activity in Southeast Asia are concentrated along the region coastlines, where 50 cities with more than 500,000 inhabitants each. It also includes major cities like Bangkok, Jakarta, Manila, Yangon, or Ho Chi Minh City. So if in the near future, I read in the article that in 2050, Ho Chi Minh City can be damaged severely by flood because of the sea level rise. Yeah, that's enough for the facts. And now the reasons for boosting non-traditional security cooperation. The first thing is, as I threw out all the current emerging issues of non-traditional security, these things are playing a more and more important role in the changing regional geostrategy. The second reason is as Dr. Lee mentioned, we have a limitation in cooperation on traditional security because we have a little bit different interests between ASEAN and South Korea. When South Korea obsessed by North Korea and ASEAN somehow have a South China Sea issue. And when it comes to traditional security, it also relates to the core interests of many major powers in the region, particularly the US and China. And it's also the weakness of ASEAN when it's faced with the traditional security. It's always has a weak voice or lack of unity. When mentioned about the traditional security, like we see a limited ASEAN role in Bravia conflict between Cambodia and Thailand in the past, or the weak voice of ASEAN on South China Sea issues. The third reason is the high possibility of cooperation in non-traditional security, because ASEAN and South Korea share a lot of interests, like I presented before. And more important, it may not conflict with the core interests of major powers. And it's also suitable with the middle power policy of South Korea. Ooh. Yes, from that I come to the third part, as review the current ASEAN-Korea cooperation on non-traditional security. As Dr. Lee mentioned, we have a lot of mechanisms, like ASEAN-led forum, like EAS, ARF, IDMM Plus, ASEAN Plus 3. We also have ASEAN ROK Summit. We have Seoul Defense Dialogue, ASEAN ROK Minister Meeting, and ASEAN ROK Dialogue. That's the dialogue between the two sides. And when it comes to implementation, we also have East Asia Vision Group, and East Asia Study Group, which are initiated by South Korea, if I'm not wrong, in the ASEAN Plus 3 mechanism. We also have ASEAN ROK Plan of Action from 2016 to 2020. We also have ASEAN ROK Cooperation Fund. And last but not least, the two sides recently signed MOU between IPO and Keypro on intellectual property on March of 2018. That is a lot of mechanism we can exploit, and we can open more space and deepen the mechanism between the two sides. So based on that, I come to some suggestions. First, we need to strengthen our current mechanism, like I said in the previous slides. Yes. And the second, more important, I suggest 3 new issues that South Korean government can think about when you want to deepen relation with ASEAN on security issue. First, the plan of action that focus on 3 issues. You can form a plan of action focus on 3 issues: climate change, water security, including water-related disasters, and cyber security. The second is increase the ODA of South Korea to ASEAN. Because as I know, current ODA of South Korea is only 0.14%. Now you can increase to 0.3% of GNI. It's still lower than the recommendation of OECD, 0.7% of GNI. In which ASEAN can receive 40% of South Korean ODA. Last but not least, it's a little bit about Mekong region, because we have a lot of initiatives by major countries in the region with regard to Mekong countries. We have Lankan-Mekong Initiative by the US. We have Lankan-Mekong Cooperation by China. We have also Japan-Mekong Cooperation. We have Mekong ROK Minister Meeting. So as a middle power, Korea can be a mediator that can collect or unite all those mechanisms in a single mechanism for ASEAN countries. It would be better for us to work as a united mechanism than the 4 mechanisms as today. Yes, that's it. Last word I want to say, that does not mean I'm ignoring the security, traditional security. I mean, the non-traditional security would be the soft meat for us to eat first. Then, if we have a good foundation on non-traditional security, we can come to the hardborn, which is a traditional security like North Korea issues or South China Sea issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Eung and Dr. Chin. I think Eung and Dr. Chin basically indicated why it is desirable for Korea and ASEAN to have a security dialogue or consultation on the non-traditional security challenges. And he singled out the 3 areas where Korea and ASEAN cooperation can make a difference, namely climate change, water security, and cyber security. As a matter of fact, Korea and ASEAN have been substantially cooperating in these 3 areas he cited. I think through ARF, Korea has been a leading player to achieve the level of cooperation in the area of cyber security. And also, in terms of water security, you may be wondering why Southeast Asia has been experiencing a flood as well as a drought annually. I think Korea can do a lot to address the situation of flood and drought. Probably on a half a year, most of Southeast Asia will remain flooded. But on another 6 months, most of Southeast Asia countries has been experiencing shortage of water. So I think Korea can do something to address this imbalance. And also, I would like to emphasize the fact that we cannot prevent natural disasters. We cannot prevent water-related natural disasters, but we can do a lot to reduce the damage that could be done by flood to properties and human lives. I think in this regard, Korea can do a lot to cooperate with ASEAN. You may be wondering why so many people have lost their lives in the Sulawesi tsunami. I think if we are able to put in place a system whereby a prior warning system can work, it could make a lot of difference. I think Korea can do a lot. And here in Korea, we have a GGI named the Global Green Growth Institute. I think this institute's primary responsibility is to help developing countries to adapt to climate change. So I think GGI can extend its reach to include countries in Southeast Asia as well. So we'll talk more about your presentation during the open discussion sessions. And now I would like to invite Professor Chae Won-gi. He's a senior member of Center for ASEAN Indian Studies at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Choi, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chung. My name is Won-gi Cho. I'm from KNDA. I regret to have missed the morning session. I had another engagement. The two presenters made a very good case about the need to enlarge security cooperation between Korea and ASEAN, not only in non-traditional security areas, but also in regional multilateral institution building efforts. So I don't have anything to argue against the arguments made by the two presenters. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about three things specifically. First, the New Southern policy itself, why Korea and ASEAN should enlarge and intensify security cooperation and political cooperation in the context of Korea's initiative toward ASEAN called New Southern policy. Second, I'd like to talk about what sort of doable, feasible political and security cooperation could be possible in the near future. And lastly, I'd like to talk about how Korea and ASEAN can work together to building an open, inclusive, and transparent regional architecture. I think this is very important. I mean, I believe that in the first session, when you had a discussion about U.S.-China rivalry, I mean, if you look at the current status of regional architecture building efforts, you have very mutually exclusive kind of forces operating. I mean, China is now unilaterally pursuing BRI and trying to build their own sphere of sort of economic influence under the brand name of BRI. But on the other hand, U.S. has pursuing what they call free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. And Japan, to a certain extent, in the same way. And also, India is also in the same direction. So you see some sort of mutually exclusive regional architecture building process. I mean, countries like Korea and most of ASEAN countries, the secondary states in the region might face the kind of choice between US and China, kind of face diplomatic dilemmas, things like that. So we need to work together, Korea and ASEAN work together to enlarge our kind of diplomatic space to maneuver, to fend off the diplomatic kind of pressures from this great power rivalry in the near future. So, first of all, I believe Ambassador Seo in his keynote speech in the morning elaborated about New Southern policy, but I'd like to share my personal take on about New Southern policy. I think New Southern policy has at least three important policy dimensions. First, it is external economic policy. Second, it is diplomatic diversification policy. And thirdly, I think it's Korea's regional strategy regarding regional architecture building. The first is external economic diversification. So with this new Southern policy, in combination of new Northern policy, we try to diversify our external economic portfolios. If you look at trade relations of Korea right now, we put too much eggs in China basket. China takes about 25 or 30% of our total trade volume, which is not really helpful for us. This is not good for us. I mean, you need to diversify. We observed quite a lot of good example of diplomatic constraint coming from of this heavy dependence on China, the third economic sanction from China. So with new Southern policy, we try to realign our economic relation with one of the most economically dynamic regions, ASEAN and India. And second, the Southern policy is kind of our renewed diplomatic effort to strengthen bilateral ties with ASEAN countries. I have been asked quite a lot from ASEAN scholars that what is new about New Southern policy? Well, of course, New Southern policy is building upon the prior efforts of previous governments efforts to strengthen relationship with ASEAN. But I think what is new about New Southern policy is that for the first time in Korean modern diplomatic history, it is first time for the government to prioritize ASEAN as key partner in our diplomatic relationship. So with New Southern policy, we try to strengthen our bilateral ties with ASEAN on all fronts, not only in people-to-people exchanges and kind of social interactions, also in mutual economic win-win cooperation. We also endeavor to strengthen our bilateral political and security ties. So in this respect, I think New Southern policy of Moon administration provides a strong political momentum to strengthen and intensify the political and security cooperation with ASEAN. Well, the third dimension of New Southern policy is, I think, this is our Korea's new regional cooperation strategy. Well, if you look at the early days of ASEAN +3 cooperation, right after the East Asian financial crisis in 1997 and 8, this is the start of what is called ASEAN-led multilateral cooperation, regional cooperation, right? So from ASEAN +3, you have what is now going on, the trilateral cooperation, trilateral summit among Korea, Japan, and China. And also later on, EAS came out of this ASEAN +3 process. So in late 1990s and early 2000, which is the heydays of regional cooperation led by ASEAN, Korea has been indispensable partner with ASEAN in this regional cooperation process. I mean, you have visionary leaders like Mahathir and DJ Kim Dae-jung, right, in building East Asia Vision Group and things like that. So the idea of EAS came out of this East Asian Vision Group, right? So Korea has been very indispensable, good partner with ASEAN in ASEAN-led regional building process. But with the rise of China, with China chipping away the US influence in the region, I mean, gaining influence in the region, I mean, the centrality of ASEAN, the unity of ASEAN, and the driver kind of role of ASEAN in regional cooperation has been really decreased. So with this New Southern policy, Korea wants to revive the partnership of Korea and ASEAN in leading regional architecture building process. Well, this is my take on New Southern policy. So with this background, I think if you look at the past trajectory of Korea-ASEAN political and security cooperation, as Dr. Lee well described, you don't have any sort of a meaningful cooperation, right? I mean, Korea has been traditionally approaching ASEAN from the perspective of economic relations. We regard ASEAN as a destination of Korean export, a destination of Korean investment with unlimited supply of cheap labor and raw materials. And also ASEAN has been the popular destination of Korea tourists and vacation kind of place, right? So, and also if you look at the regional security issues important to ASEAN, when it comes to ASEAN security issues, right? Korea has been a bystander, uninterested outsider, or neutral observer at most. Korea has been voiceless, has been deliberately voiceless about the most sensitive, politically most sensitive security issue in ASEAN, South China Sea issues. We never made a public publicly available, clear stance on ASEAN. Well, in 2015, when the former president, Ms. Park, had a summit meeting with Barack Obama in Washington, D.C., President Obama explicitly complained about Korea's silence about South China Sea. We need to be more vocal about freedom of navigation, things like that. And then right after that, 1 month after that, in September in 2015, in ADMM Plus, our defense minister made some statement about the South China Sea issue. So this indicates that Korea has been very intentionally cautious about the hard security issues in ASEAN region. This is quite understandable, right? In South China Sea, you have China, U.S. involved. I mean, when it comes to U.S. and China kind of relationship, Korea has been very cautious. We don't want to be forced to take sides between the two powers, right? So this is also understood by ASEAN partners. So, so in terms of security cooperation, I would say that there is no meaningful kind of cooperation between Korea and ASEAN in the past. But there is one particular security area where Korea has a strong interest in pulling out cooperation from ASEAN. That is the North Korean issue, right? So we are very appreciative of Singapore hosting first DPRK US Summit. And also we are very appreciative of Indonesia in endorsing the Team Korea, unified Korean sports team in Palembang ASEAN Games. So we have very high expectation of ASEAN of providing a strong support in engaging DPRK and contributing ASEAN's contribution to Korean peace process. So, the possible plausible areas of political and security cooperation, as Dr. Nguyen Duc Ching pointed out, NTS issues, definitely that is the area to work on. The water security, cyber security, climate change related issues, and HADR, right? Humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. But this is not, I mean, this is also, this is non-traditional security. So you could call it security cooperation. But this is not, I mean, the security cooperation in proper sense, right? You have to go further than that. Actually, my question is, I mean, how would Korea can go far in terms of pushing the frontiers of cooperation, security cooperation with ASEAN. Is Korea ready to take a clear stance on some hard security issues in ASEAN, including South China Sea? I don't know the answer, but probably I think that's not the way that Korea can be proactive. I think rather than focusing on hard security areas, I think except for the non-traditional security, Korea and ASEAN have great potential to cooperate in areas of soft maritime security areas, like what they call, this is technical term, what they call maritime domain awareness, maritime capacity building. For example, technical and capacity building support for ASEAN's Coast Guard's surveillance and monitoring kind of issues. And also ASEAN countries have problems of illegal fishery, right? So IUU issue. So Korea has some technical expertise and equipment about this, so you have some potential to cooperate. And also in the management of marine wastes, this is also promising areas of cooperation. And also defense industry cooperation, this is also a good area. And also North Korea is also one area to cooperate for ASEAN and Korea to cooperate. So it is for Korea's interest to engage DPRK bilaterally or multilaterally. So as lots of people already pointed out, ASEAN has many multilateral frameworks in which DPRK can participate, right? ARF and other multilateral fora. So we expect ASEAN to engage DPRK either bilaterally or multilaterally in these ASEAN-led multilateral forums. And lastly, it's about the Korea-ASEAN cooperation regarding regional architecture building efforts. Well, I think when it comes to the regional multilateral institutional building process, Korea and ASEAN share the same interest in building and maintaining open, inclusive, and transparent regional architecture. We do have the same interest with China in having an inclusive regional architecture. We don't want to have an exclusive architecture. In that regard, EAS is a good platform in which US, China, Russia, Korea, and other countries are members, right? So in that regard, Korea is in full support of ASEAN centrality and unity. And given the lack of strategic dialogue about this issue between Korea and ASEAN, I think we have to work harder and intensify the strategic dialogue about these regional architecture building process. So in this week, in ASEAN-related meetings and EAS summit, I believe that Mike Pence will come up with a US kind of proposal about Indo-Pacific, more elaborated policy programs of Indo-Pacific strategy. And also, I believe that Indonesia has prepared the ASEAN common position about Indo-Pacific concept. So I think there is some progress about this issue. And I argued that Korea and ASEAN should have greater consultation about these issues because we do share the same interest and to a certain extent with China as well. Thank you. I'll stop.
Thank you very much, Professor Choi Won-gi, for your comprehensive comment. Now I would like to invite Dr. Do Jung-yoon, Senior Researcher at the Jeju Peace Institute, to make his comment. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I try to speak in Korean for more understandable and easier represented to communicate through the relevant language. in particular, we are Korean in the room, so almost. So 일단 좋은 발표를 해주신 두 분께 이제 감사드립니다. 신남방 정책 이번 패널에도 신남방 정책에 대한 얘기가 이제 쭉 나오고 있는데요. 뭐 제가 알기로는 이제 2017년도 11월 9일 날 한 인도네시아 비즈니스 포럼 기조 연설을 통해서 공식 천명한 문 대통령께서 공식 천명한 정책으로 알고 있습니다. 뭐 사람, 평화, 상생, 번영, 공동체 뭐 이런 3P를 핵심으로 하고 있다 이렇게 제가 알고 있고요. 그다음에 또 안보와 관련돼서는 안보 차원에서 북한과 외교 관계를 맺고 있는 아세안과의 북핵 대응 공조와 협력을 이끈다라고 알고 있습니다. 앞서 토론해 주신 그 최원기 교수께서도 다른 곳에서 글을 쓰신 걸 한번 봤는데 신남방 정책 왜 필요한가 이런 글을 써주셨는데 여기서 인도와 동남아의 경제 성장이 우리가 이제 관심을 끌어야 하는 시기가 됐다 뭐 이렇게 언급해 주신 것을 본 적이 있습니다. 이제 이런 선언이 발표된 지 이제 1년이 지났는데요. 근데 이제 구체적으로 지금 뭐 어떤 소우제들이 있는지 또 어떻게 실천이 되고 있는지 뭐 저는 이쪽 전문가는 아니지만 어쨌든 이런 학계에 몸 담고 있는 사람으로 저도 사실은 이게 뭐가 진행되고 있는지 사실 알기가 좀 어렵습니다. 아마 일반 사람들은 더 그러리라고 생각이 되고요. 작년에도 비슷한 회의에서 아까 계셨던 존 들러리 교수가 이제 얘기했었던 건데 설령 이게 내용이 구체적이지 않더라도 대통령 임기를 초월해서 그러니까 이전 정권이나 다음 정권하고 계속 일관성을 가지고 이런 정책들이 과연 이어질 수 있느냐, 뭐 장기적인 원칙이 되느냐 이런 걸 이제 비판해 주셨던 것이 기억이 나는데요. 저 입장에서도 이게 응징력을 가지고 일관되게 추진될 수 있을 것인지 뭐 저도 이제 걱정이 조금 됩니다. 뭐 이제 이거는 서두고요. 이재현 박사님께서 이제 지적해 주신 대로 사실 그러니까 아세안과 그 외교 안보에서 북한에 대한 이슈는 이제 너무나도 이제 식상한 게 이제 사실입니다. 그러니까 이제 표현을 안 해주셨는데 미리 주신 발제문에 보면 노스코리아 파티기라는 말씀을 해주셨는데 그 아세안 국가 사람이 아닌 제 입장에서도 그 공감이 됩니다. 한반도 이슈가 우리한테 굉장히 중요하지만 또 동북아 질서에서도 아주 중요한 건 사실이지만 이게 이제 단지 이제 남북 간의 안보 문제거나 뭐 북미 간의 정치 게임 정도로만 비춰지면은 뭐 동남아를 비롯해서 글로벌 사회에서 공감을 얻는데 이제 한계가 있다. 근데 계속 이게 북한 얘기만 하고 있을 수는 없는 거 아니냐. 특히 안보 문제에서. 이런 점 이제 그 옆에 계신 그 미스터 친께서도 이제 지적해 주셨는데요. 이 전통 안보의 경우 양쪽의 관심사가 서로 다르기 때문에 협력의 한계가 있다. 이런 문제는 저도 굉장히 공감이 됩니다. 그래서 비전통 안보인 기후 변화나 사이버 안보 뭐 이런 것들을 거론해 주셨는데 저도 관심을 분명히 기울여야 하는 바라고 이제 생각이 듭니다. 근데 이제 문제는 여기서 이제 한국과 아세안 양쪽의 이제 시각차가 이제 적어도 안보 문제에서 드러난다라고 이제 생각이 됩니다. 그러니까 한반도 이슈보다 많은 관심을 가진 한국과 그러니까 북한 문제겠죠. 그다음에 비전통 안보에 상대적으로 보다 더욱 관심을 갖고 있는 아세안. 자, 이게 이제 서로 입장 차이인데 이게 이제 어떻게 우리가 조응이 돼서 안보 문제를 엮어낼 것인가 그리고 신남방 정책 이걸 어떻게 관통할 것인가 이제 이게 우리가 다뤄야 할 문제라고 생각이 됩니다. 네, 뭐 우리가 이제 여기 모인 사람들이 사실은 정책을 직접 위반하거나 또 이제 어떤 경제에 종사하는 사람들은 아니기 때문에 우리가 이제 그 실천적인 걸 얘기하는 것도 중요하지만 연구자들이기 때문에 대부분이 연구자들로서의 좀 이론의 방점을 찍어서 장기적인 과제를 제시하고 비전을 보여주는 것이 저는 필요하다고 생각합니다. 그러니까 이래야지만이 정권에 상관없이 어떤 일관성이나 응집력을 가지고 쭉 밀고 나갈 수 있는 어떤 토대가 된다고 생각이 됩니다. 그래서 이재현 박사님께서 제안해 주신 것은 연구자로서 귀담아 들어야 할 것이라고 생각하는데 이제 특히 이제 강조해 주신 리지너널 멀티래터럴 코퍼레이션은 아주 원론적이지만 사실은 실천에서는 아직 제대로 되고 있지 않은 거라고 생각이 됩니다. 굉장히 중요한 원칙인데 뭐 우리 다 알고 있겠지만 이제 뭐 이런 그 리지너널 멀티래터럴 코퍼레이션은 어떤 깊은 이론적 배경도 있고 또 실천적인 부분도 사실 있습니다. 이 박사님께서 이제 언급해 주셨는데 이제 작년에 아세안이 제시한 그 폴리티컬 시큐리티 커뮤니티 이제 구상 뭐 이런 것들이 이제 있죠. 그래서 여기서는 전통 비전통 안보가 모두 포함되어 있고 또 아세안의 당면 안보 문제 그 미스터 친께서 말씀해 주신 자연재해나 마약 인권 반테러리즘 뭐 이런 거뿐만 아니라 또 북한의 핵 문제를 이제 ARF에서 비확산으로 개념화시키고 있는 아주 그런 실천적인 활동이었다고 생각이 됩니다. 근데 이제 여기서 이제 중요한 게 이제 세큐리티, 그러니까 폴리티컬 세큐리티 커뮤니티였기 때문에 이 세큐리티 커뮤니티 개념은 연구자들한테도 아주 중요한 개념입니다. 이건 뭐 새로운 것은 아니고 이제 이론적으로 있었던 거를 이제 아세안에서 이제 채택했다고 저는 생각이 되는데요. 뭐 여기에 이제 여러 가지 쭉 이제 뭐 그 이론적인 배경은 사실 있습니다. 1954년도에 뭐 컬 드이츠가 이제 처음에 제시했고 2003년에는 이제 베리 부전이나 올라웨어 같은 사람이 리저널 세큐리티 컴플렉스라는 개념으로 이제 좀 발전시켰고 또 최근에는 그 아멘티브 아차리아가 세큐리티 커뮤니티를 조금 더 그 발전시킨 내용들을 있겠죠. 그래서 뭐 다 아시겠지만 그 조금 개념화를 시키자면 일정 집단을 구성하는 국가들 간의 평화적인 상호작용을 장기적 관습으로 발전시키는 것이다 이렇게 얘기를 하고 있고 또 상호작용과 사회화의 가능성을 높이고 국제관계를 평화적으로 발전시킬 수 있는 제도의 틀을 이론적으로 제시하는 것이 과제다 이게 말한 바가 있습니다. 그래서 이 세큐리티 커뮤니티 개념은 지금 얘기해 주신 그 전통 안보나 비전통 안보를 모두 포함하고 또 서로 이해관계가 다른 비대칭적인 안보 관심사를 모두 다 하나 묶어낼 수 있는 뭐 그런 하나 이론적 틀이 될 수 있다라는 생각이 됩니다. 근데 이제 아차리아가 이제 강조한 게 그럼 이 세큐리티 커뮤니티가 생기려면은 롱텀 헤빗이 있어야 된다. 그러니까 장기적인 습관이 계속 이렇게 만들어져야 되는데 이걸 그럼 어떻게 구현할 것인가가 이제 핵심 포인트다 이런 얘기를 하고 있습니다. 근데 이제 여기서 핵심은 장기적인 습관이 무엇이 될 것인지를 미리 결정해서 되는 것은 아니라는 것이죠. 이게 이제 불가능하기도 하다. 왜냐면은 지금 뭐 사이버 문제가 중요하고 자연재해가 중요하고 그러지만 이것이 10년 뒤, 20년 뒤에도 이 문제들은 여전히 중요하겠지만 이 외에도 다른 것들이 또 나올 수도 있는 것이기 때문에 미리 결정하는 것보다는 과정을 통해서 그런 것을 자꾸 새롭게 발굴하면서 그걸 자꾸 사회화하고 습관화시키는 것이 사실은 더 중요하다라는 얘기를 합니다. 그래서 차례가 그 책에서 이제 새로운 이익을 발견하는 문제가 굉장히 중요하고 그러니까 이익이 어디에서 새로 나타날 것인가 발견을 계속해야 된다는 거죠. 그다음에 집단의 정체성을 또 인정하는 것이 또 중요하다. 그래서 이것들이 서로 상호작용하고 또 사회화할 수 있도록 도와주는 것이 필요하다 이렇게 얘기를 했는데 저는 안보 개념에서도 예전에 그 라이벌 관계에서의 어떤 네거티브적인 그런 이해관계를 따지는 게 아니라 상생화 관계로서의 어떤 그 안보를 얘기할 때는 굉장히 중요한 개념이 아닌가 이런 생각을 하게 됩니다. 근데 이런 그 상호작용이나 사회화는 분명히 이제 시간이 굉장히 오래 걸리는 거죠. 그래서 어떤 뭐 어느 정권에서 슬로건으로 이걸 딱 제시했다 그래가지고 이게 단기간에 이제 완성이 되는 것은 아니고 아까 말씀드린 대로 긴 시간에 걸쳐서 정권에 상관없이 갈 수 있는 그런 아주 근본적인 어떤 원칙 같은 것이 있어야 되는 것이죠. 그래서 이제 뭐 그 비근한 예로 이제 하나의 이제 경험으로 이제 얘기를 한다면 우리가 유럽연합 얘기를 사실 많이 합니다. 유럽연합이 과거에는 그냥 단지 경제 공동체 정도 수준이었는데 1993년에 마스트리트 조약을 맺으면서 외교 관계를 유럽 위의 지역으로 넓히고 그러니까 아시아에 대해서도 이제 관심을 갖게 되는데 이때는 처음에 나왔었던 정략은 단지 그냥 프레센스를 높인다라는 것이었습니다. 아까 이지현 박사님이 비지빌리티 얘기를 해줬는데 프레센스는 비지빌리티하고 조금 뭐 다른 것 같습니다. 이건 이제 뭐 나중에 기회가 있으면 다시 얘기하겠지만은 이 프레센스를 높이기 위해서 꾸준히 94년도부터 최근 2016년도까지 계속 전략을 만들어가면서 프레센스에 집중을 하는 어떻게 하면 아시아에서 유럽이라는 존재감이 드러나게 할 수 있을까를 상품, 뭐 무역, 서비스, 안보 분야에서 모두 다 이제 드러내려고 노력을 했습니다. 이 안에 이제 ODA나 뭐 인권의 증진이라든가 뭐 교류를 한다 이런 것들이 다 포함되어 있었던 것이죠. 근데 이게 롱텀 헤빗이 되면서 유럽연합의 하나의 그 세큐리티 문제, 그러니까 뭐 무역 문제 이런 것들이 아시아에서 하나의 협력의 기제가 될 수 있는 이 커뮤니티를 형성하는 그런 그 바탕이 됐다 이렇게 보고 있습니다. 그래서 지구상에서 보면은 이런 세큐리티 커뮤니티가 가장 성공적인 예는 아마 유럽연합 정도일 거고요. 그 다음에 있다면 아직은 좀 완성 단계에 다다르진 않았지만 아세안 정도가 될 겁니다. 그렇다면은 중요한 건 아세안이나 EU와 또 우리가 어떤 아차리아식의 어떤 인터랙션이나 소셜리제이션을 통해서 세큐리티 커뮤니티를 어떻게 만들 것인가, 세큐리티 커뮤니티 어떻게 만들 것인가 이런 것들을 이제 우리가 이제 구상해봐야 되는데요. 이지현 박사님 이제 형식을 제시해 주신 것 같습니다. 그래서 아세안 코리아 세큐리티 다이얼로그도 말씀해 주셨고, 아세안 코리아 NTS 다이얼로그, 뭐 아세안 코리아 트랙 투 다이얼로그 이런 것들을 쭉 얘기해 주신 것 같은데, 요걸 이제 다자적 협력의 방식으로 접근하면 어떨까 하는 제안을 주셨다고 좀 판단이 되고요. 그다음에 미스터 친께서 이제 주제를 제안해 주신 것 같습니다. 사이버 안보라든가 뭐 기후 변화라든가 뭐 이런 비전통 안보 이런 것들 해 주셨는데 이제 한 가지 이제 아쉬운 거는 두 분의 제안에도 불구하고 여전히 두 분의 제안은 은연중에 이게 양자적 조건으로 다루고 있다. 왜냐하면 아세안은 하나의 이제 큰 덩어리고 그 안에 이제 세분화된 멤버들이 있고, 근데 우리는 단일 행위자입니다. 그래서 물론 아세안도 이제 유니터리 액트처럼 행동할 때도 있지만 여전히 파편화되어 있기 때문에 이런 집단하고 우리 단일화된 우리하고 만날 때도 양제적으로 얘기해 갖고 안 되는 부분들이 사실은 있다. 그래서 저는 어떤 단계별 접근이라든지 응용된 다자적 접근 또는 다자적 접근의 변이 뭐 이런 것들을 제안하고 싶습니다. 그래서 뭐 여기 관련돼서 한 서너 가지 정도 얘기할 수 있는데요. 첫 번째는 안타깝게도 이게 이제 그 아세안하고 이게 우리가 이런 식으로 만나려면은 먼저 우리가 해야 할 게 있는데 하나의 일종의 빌드업 같은 거죠. 동북아시아의 지역주의가 먼저 선행되어야 한다라는 생각을 갖습니다. 이게 이제 먼저 있어야 되는데 이게 이제 남한, 북한, 또 중국, 뭐 일본, 몽고, 대만 이런 나라들이 모여서 동북아 지역주의를 먼저 형성해서 하나의 이제 그룹을 하나 형성하는 게 저는 필요하다고 보는데요. 사실 이건 이제 일정 부분 우리가 외교 정책으로도 관심을 기울이고 있는 부분이기도 합니다. 그래서 고맙습니다. 근데 이게 지금 이런 지역주의의 일부분이 이제 지역화라는 이름으로 어느 정도 이제 입증이 되어 있기 때문에 롱텀 헤빗을 만드는 데는 지역화하고 지역주의가 같이 만들어서 일단 지역주의를 만들어주는 것이 중요하다. 그래서 이런 지역주의가 만들어지면 아세안과의 지역관주의를 형성해서 하나의 세큐리티 커뮤니티로 가는 방향을 추진해 볼 수 있다. 이게 이제 신남방 정책 중에 안보 분야가 좀 채택할 수 있는 게 아닌가 그런 거고요. 그다음에 장기적인 시각뿐만 아니라 두 번째는 어떤 단기적인 시각도 필요하다고 생각이 되는데 예를 들면은 어떤 소셜 인터레저널리즘 같은 뭐 이런 것들을 사실 얘기할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 저는 요즘에 이제 관심 있게 보는 게 이제 국가 단위가 아니라 지방자치 단위 수준에서 인터리저널리즘 같은 걸 이제 보고 있는데 이런 거는 국가의 어떤 기재 없이 그러니까 정통적인 리저널리즘의 기재 없이 국가 수준에서는 바로 접근할 수 있는 연대감 같은 걸 만들 수 있다는 것이죠. 그래서 여기 멀티라는 개념을 이제 멀티레터럴이라는 개념을 이제 이 박사님께서 써주셨는데 이게 단지 이게 국가들 수준의 멀티레터럴뿐만 아니라 지방자치단체들의 멀티레터럴 아니면 연대에 대한 멀티레터럴리즘이라든지 젠더에 대한 멀티레터럴 뭐 이런 것들을 얘기할 수가 있을 것 같습니다. 그다음 마지막으로 주의해야 할 게 있는데요. 이게 어찌됐든 멀티레터럴 코퍼레이션이든 세큐리티 커뮤니티든 결국 상호작용하고 사회화가 반드시 있어야 되는데 이게 이제 상호작용이나 사회가 반드시 협력으로 가는 건 아니라는 것이죠. 그러니까 이게 하나의 반성해야 되는 건데 뭐 이주민이나 난민, 문화 충돌 같은 것들이 오히려 사회화 과정 속에서 오히려 더 드러날 수 있다라는 것이죠. 그래서 이제 뭐 이론에서 보면 구성주의자들이나 아니면 마이클 샌들 같은 사람들이 이런 커뮤니타리언들이 얘기하는 게 어떤 소셜리제이션에 대한 어떤 낙관적인 기대를 하는데 반드시 이게 이제 답은 아니기 때문에 이거를 해결해 줄 수 있는 또 하나의 정치적인 이제 역량이 필요하다. 이게 이제 하나의 이제 과제인 것이죠. 그래서 이것도 우리가 하나의 분과로 가지고서 계속 고민을 해야 될 것이다 생각이 듭니다. 그래서 이게 제가 이제 제안하고 싶은 거는 제 독창적인 생각은 아니지만 이게 세큐리티 커뮤니티로 간 여러 가지 길들과 주제들을 이끌어가는 방법이 무엇인지 이제 고민해야 된다는 것이 있고요. 신남방 정책이 조금 더 장기적이고 또 일관성 있게 추진하려면은 이론화된 작업들이 조금 더 많이 얘기가 돼야 하지 않을까 하는 생각을 갖습니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much, Dr. Do Jong-yun, for your very good, excellent comment. I think now we have only about 5 minutes before we adjourn. So before I invite our panelists to make a comment on the ideas suggested by discussant, let me just ask the floor to see if you have any questions or suggestions to be made? Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Zhang.
It's a few comments. I agree with Professor Cho completely that South Korea needs to be very careful with this so-called security cooperation with ASEAN. He pointed out the South China Sea issue, right? It would be strategic and wise for South Korea to get involved in the South China Sea dispute, because for South Korea, probably the most important bilateral relationship is with great powers. they have profound impact on South Korea's all kinds of national interests, security, economic. And of course, China's not only South Korea's biggest trading partner, but also a vital great power actor that profoundly affects South Korea's national security. So it would be very unwise for South Korea to poke that issue. It's not even a South Korean issue. To begin with, there's not even a real freedom of navigation problem in South China Sea. And it doesn't concern South Korea at all, you know, and then you poke that issue, make yourself China's enemy, you know, it would be foolish. You know, we have no strategic wisdom of any kind, you know. So I think, of course, that's why, you know, South Korean government will never touch the issue. You know, they will never get involved. You know, it's because they are wise. You know, the other issue is different panel members talk about regional multilateral mechanisms. And how, you know, let's be honest, in the age of a great power rivalry, renewed geopolitics, regional architecture, they are totally useless. Let's be honest, you know. We are once again seeing international politics driven, unfortunately, shaped by great power rivalries, you know. We cannot escape that, you know. And those regional mechanisms created by smaller countries, by medium countries, they have no impact whatsoever in shaping outcomes. They have no ways to shape great powers' behaviors, goals, strategic choices. You know, instead, the influence is the other way around. You know, the great powers shape everybody else's behaviors, interests, and so don't have that myth. Somehow, we can once again revive. ASEAN-led multilateral frameworks, and somehow they can change security dynamics in the region. They won't. The ASEAN so-called centrism only assumed so-called centrality in the 1990s. Not because they are really important, it's because great powers, for that reason, defer to them for their own strategic reasons. You know, not because those multilaterals are independently important. But when China rises, when the U.S. began to push back, when Japan resurrects as a strategic actor, you know, those what ASEAN, what a regional forum, whatever, I forgot the name because people don't mention them anymore. They start to become irrelevant. You know, they have no impact. You know, South China Sea dispute, East China Sea, U.S., China, Japan dispute, Taiwan Strait dispute, overall China-U.S. strategic rivalry. Those ASEAN members, those regional architecture, they have no impact, you know. And so I think, unfortunately, that's just the reality. As always, great powers shape international relations, okay? And it's really unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang, for your comment. Professor Lee, Lee-Seung-Jin, you don't have? Please go ahead, 한인 Tech.
네, 뭐 중복되는 내용 같습니다만 이제 발표와 토론을 듣다 보니까 그 한 아세안 안보 협력이라는 표현이 이게 여러 차원에서 모순이 아닌가 하는 생각이 듭니다. 그러니까 첫째로 이제 저는 이제 아세안이 안보 문제에 있어서 뭐 대화 상대자는 될 수가 있지만 과연 협력 상대자인지는 잘 모르겠습니다. EU 같은 경우는 우리의 대화 상대자일 수도 있고요. 또 동시에 이제 실질적인 협력의 상대자가 될 수가 있습니다. 왜냐하면은 EU는 이제 독자적인 안보 정책을 만들 수 있고 또 집행을 할 수 있으니까요. 하지만 아세안이 과연 독자적인 안보 정책을 만들 수 있고 집행할 수 있는지는 저는 잘 모르겠습니다. 아직까지 아세안은 그 단계까지 가지 않은 것으로 생각이 듭니다. 즉 안보 정책은 동남아의 개별 국가들이 만들고 우리가 아세안과 안보 협력을 한다고 하면 동남아에 있는 개별 국가하고 협력하는 것 정도가 되겠고 아마 그 아세안에 있는 다양한 제도 속에서 대화는 할 수 있겠죠. 대화 상대자로는 좋습니다. 그렇지만 이게 협력까지 할 수 있는 건지 잘 모르겠다는 생각이 들었습니다. 두 번째로는 오늘 발표하시는 분하고 토론하신 분들의 얘기를 들어보니까 이건 한국과 아세안이 공동의 인식을 하고 있는지 전혀 모르겠습니다. 그러니까 이전 박사님께서는 이제 미중 경쟁이라든가 북핵 위협을 중요한 안보 위협으로 생각을 하고 그에 대응하기 위해서 한 아세안이 협력을 강화하자 이런 말씀하시고 한편 최홍기 교수님께서는 아마 동남아에서는 아니면 아세안에서 가장 큰 안보적인 도전이라고 할 수 있는 남중국 핵 문제에 관해서 한국은 사실은 개입을 할 수가 없다라는 또 말씀하셨거든요. 이제 진선택님께서는 뭐 기후 변화라든가 물 사이버 안보 분야에서 비전통 안보 협력을 하자고 하셨고요. 이 세 분이 말씀하시는 걸 보면요, 그 제안하고 있는 안보 협력의 방향과 내용이 너무 다릅니다. 이런 경우에 과연 안보 협력이 가능한지 이렇게 인식이 다를 때는 안보 협력이 가능한지 잘 모르겠습니다. 제가 생각하기에 신남방 정책은 기본적으로 한국의 대외 경제 정책이라고 생각이 됩니다. 그러니까 우선적으로 이제 번영을 목표로 하는 것이지 평화나 안정, 특히 동남아에서의 평화와 안정까지는 목표로 하는 것 같지 않습니다. 그래서 신남방 정책이 뭐 북핵 문제를 해결하거나 아니면 남중국 핵 문제를 해결하거나 아니면 한국과 아세안이 뭐 이런 그런 문제 그런 각 지역의 안보 문제를 해결할 수 있는 안보 협력을 뭐 목표로 하거나 아니면 그런 결과를 낳을 수 있다고 기대하는 것은 아마 과다한 기대거나 잘못된 기대가 아닌가 하는 생각을 해봅니다. 네, 이상입니다.
Okay, now do you have a question, Professor Lee? Okay, please go ahead.
방금 말씀하신 중에서 듣는 중에 하나는 첫째, 그 여지적의 중소국가의 영향력에 관한 이야기를 하는데요. 우리가 20년에 일본과 아세안 관계를 생각해 보시면 되는데 중국이 계속 커져간다면 내 보기에는 아세안의 역할이 없다고 생각합니다. 그러나 만약 20년 후에도 중국이 계속 지금같이 크지 않는다면은 아세안의 역할이 굉장히 클 수밖에 없는. 그건 바로 일본과 아세안의 예에서 보면 그 굉장히 분명히 나타납니다. 그래서 이걸 대비해서 우리도 계속 그 아세안 관계를 발전시켜 나간다는 게 하나고요. 또 하나는 제가 1월 달에 싱가포르 가서 한 달 있는 사이에 제가 놀란 건 지금 10년 사이에 2년에 한 번씩 계속 오래 있는데 싱가포르 텔레비가 매일 4시간마다 아침 6시부터 밤 한 10시까지 봤는데 톱 뉴스로 한국의 어떤 위기 상황, 지금 1월 달 이야기입니다. 그러니까 남북 대화가 일어나기 전인데 위기 상황 이야기가 계속 하는데 그만큼 싱가포르에서 보면은 이 남북한 문제의 어떤 플래시 포인트가 그게 바로 북한에서 어떤 문제가 아니라 미중국 관계에 굉장한 민감한 지역이라는 것 같아 너무 잘하는 겁니다. 즉 말해서 동남아가 되든 어떤 동북아가 되든 간에 이제는 미중국이 하는 과정에서 여차하면 그게 북한에서 어떤 일이 있는 게 바로 동남아의 경제에 그다음에 안보 위기에 좀 올 수 있다는 생각에서 서로 시큐리티가 굉장히 밀접하게 지금 원 벨트 속에서 시큐리티 벨트라는 것도 지금 나타나고 있는데 우리가 북한 문제는 그게 아니다. 우리가 그래서 제가 하나 서제션하고 싶은 거는 비록 버티고 있든 어떤 간에 한반도 문제를 동아시아의 시큐리티 이슈로 계속 제기를 해야 되고 그래서 마치 아세안은 맨 처음에 남중국의 문제를 제기할 때 클레이먼트 컨트롤 그러니까 그 지역의 영유권을 주장하는 나라만 하자는 이야기가 있었지만 아세안 전체 이건 아세안 아젠다다. 통 전체의 조인트 리스폰스를 한다는 게 해가지고 지금까지도 비록 라오스도 남중국에 관계없는 나라도 같이 좀 움직이고 있다는 사실. 미얀마도 그렇다는 건 무슨 말이냐면 아세안 아젠다를 만들어낸 게 93년부터입니다. 한국도 북한 핵 문제가 아무리 포티웨라다 하더라도 우리는 동아시아의 아젠다로 삼아야 되고 그러기 위해서는 남중국의 문제에서도 나는 개인의 의견입니다. 남중국의 문제는 남쪽 이야기가 우리랑 관계없다 이래 보는 건 미중 관계하고 아주 상관없을 때는 그 말이 맞는데 미중 관계로 인해 가지고 북한에서 동부에서 사건이 동남아 사건이 동부에 굉장히 영향을 미치고 있는 현 상황에서는 굉장히 원 벨트 안에서 보면 남중국해 문제도 우리가 심각하게 한국도 생각해야 되고 아세안도 동북아 북한 핵 문제에 대해서 아무리 버티고 있는 나 자신은 버티고 있습니다만은 그렇게 버릴 문제가 아니라고 생각합니다. 미안한데.
Thank you very much for your comment, Professor Lee. Now, since we have already passed the time deadline, let me just invite the two presenters to respond to the opinions suggested by the discussant and from the floors. Okay, Dr. Lee.
Okay, thank you for the comments and questions. We discussed a lot of issues during our discussion, and I can't possibly answer all these questions, but I would like to make 2 points. First, the nature of Korea-ASEAN security cooperation, Dr. Han mentioned. No one in South Korea or Southeast Asia seriously would think that Korea-ASEAN can solve all the South China Sea issues. And if ASEAN we can solve the North Korea problem, that's too much. We know that. We know the limitation, and we know that where we can go, there's clear limits. But given the old economic, social, cultural connectivity between Korea and Southeast Asia, the level of our discussion on security issues and strategic issues between Korea and ASEAN is too low. We are not talking at all about South China Sea and Korean Peninsula. It is South Korea's unilateral request to Southeast Asia to support Korean position in the Korean Peninsula issue. And that is probably the only security cooperation. So the first step, I mean, after a couple of decades or 30 years, we can really put our hands together to resolve regional security issues. But at the beginning stage, what we can do is to understand each other's security concern. I mean, just count how many people in South Korea, how many experts in South Korea knows about South China Sea dispute. Only handful, I guess. All these well-known, security experts in South Korea, they know inside out the U.S., they know inside out China and the China-U.S. Relations and North Korea issues, but almost no one knows South China Sea disputes. So when I say Korea, Southeast Asia security cooperation, the first beginning step should be this one: the knowing, understanding each other's security concern, rather than tomorrow we sit together and find a solution for all the regional security concern. That is not the intention I had. And okay, I will stop here. Too much.
Now may I invite Dr. Eung-wen Deok-chin to respond to some of the opinions suggested.
Thank you, Chair. Since we run out of time, so I have a very short comment with regard to national security concern between the two sides. I agree with most of the audience here that traditional security concern like North Korea and South China Sea is a very important issue, and we also have rooms for cooperation on those issues. That brings me, agree on the comment by Dr. Lee. He highlights the relationship between Japan and ASEAN. Korea can follow the Japan model, like in cooperation in the South China, in the maritime when it's issues, like you enhance the capacity buildings and information sharing, and even the visiting ship of Korean ship to ASEAN country. So by that activities, I think both sides will deepen the understandings of the mutual concern between the two sides on the issues. That's it. Thank you.
Let me ask Professor Choi Won-gi to respond to some of the opinions.
Well, I'd like to make a quick response about Professor Zhang's comment about South China Sea and regional architecture building process. Well, my presentation, my discussion question was that my observation that Korea has been silent about this, which, about South China Sea, which that does not necessarily mean that I agree, which is, I think, desirable. I think Korea should be farther than that. I mean, also you said that South Korea has nothing to do with the freedom of navigation and things like that. South Korea do have vital interest in freedom of navigation in South China Sea and Indian Ocean region. So that's one point. And also you said that the role of this ASEAN and kind of secondary states in the regions does not really matter in terms of affecting the regional architecture. I don't agree with that. Yeah, I have lots of empirical evidence, and I appreciate your candid assessment of the issues, but which is really good. But I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Choi, on your intervention. Now, ladies and gentlemen, finally, we have come to conclusion. Let me just conclude the session by congratulating the presenters, panelists, and the floors for sharing an excellent ideas and making a wonderful recommendation. I believe that those ideas and the recommendations will be very much helpful not only to the academic circles, but indeed to the policymakers. I hope that the Jeju Peace Institute will be able to share some of the key elements of our discussion with those policymakers so that these ideas can enjoy, bright daylight sometime in the future. Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause to our panelists and discussants. Thank you so much.